Hello everyone, welcome back to Gelvin Valley, created by Wild Wild West for Farming Simulator 15. We are in the middle of picking up rocks, don't really have much more to go. We have just a little bit here, a few larger ones in this field to get. We've otherwise picked them up in all 4 other fields, 21, 12, and 47. Oh, did I say 4? I meant 3. I guess there's 4 new fields. We've been ripping them out, and we've just done a lot of chisel plowing. Have a lot of rocks to pick up, so that is what we're doing. All right, let's get this bad boy fired up. Excuse me, is it Control R? I think picks up. Control S shows the, I don't have my menu on. I don't know why. It continually changes automatic help to off. Anywho, there it is. Alright, I think this one here is large enough that I can't... Yeah, I already have one in the trailer. Just kind of continue on here. I got down to this field, and just in case... that one I should be able to... You know what, I'll leave him. I can probably pound it with the... Get him. Once I get the roller, which I'm going to be doing right after I finish up this, the rest I should be able to roll into the ground. Ooh, that's pretty uneven right there. All but the largest. So I'm coming through here to pick these bigger ones up. And can't always tell visually. You know, some of these are hard to see too. Yeah, see, here's, like that one over there. I just drove by. There, we want this one. Here's another good sized one. And I didn't even see. Get that one in there. Boy, that's uneven. It's going to be a fun field to do. There's a little dinky one just to the right. You know, these, yeah, this one's probably too big, so I gotta make sure to pick them up. I almost think I find more enjoyment in here with the roller, kind of crushing them into the soil, than I do. Let me turn off at this and go up in this little nook. I probably shouldn't have even dragged the plow up here, but I did. Yeah, this one here is probably too large, so I'll pick him up. There we go. Of course, I'm getting heavier and heavier as the more I do this. But I also, I think this one is dinky enough to maybe, shoot, I don't know. Maybe I should have colored them a different color, or made it so, I don't know. I just don't know. We'll find out soon enough when I bring the roller out here, when I'm able to do it. Hard part to end is I won't want to drag the trailer out here again, but just what you need to do that. Of course, I guess you'd have to do that in real life too, if you had something you weren't able to take care of in the field. You got to go pick it up. Alright, one more now. I guess I didn't really go down through the center, so maybe I'll just take one more loop. I got some small ones there. There's a little teeny tiny one. Ones I'm afraid of missing are like that one where it's dark and I can't really see it. I don't know. I don't think I see any to speak of out here in the middle, so... Woo! Nearly puts this. No, I think we're good. I think I'll be able to pound that one in with the roller. Alright, so I did something up here to make it a little bit easier or add a little bit of realism. You know, when I created the mod, the rocks on mod, that's, you know, what burped up all these rocks, you know, when we were running the chisel plow. You know, what it does is it brings a whole bunch of physics problems into the map called 3D objects. Every single one of those rocks, you know, is its own 3D object. So the thing you need to provide the player is the ability to get rid of those problems, so a place to dispose of the rocks. And nearly every map out there has a bale destroyer trigger in it, and so I chose that, for better or for worse, as the place where these rock objects, you know, could be disposed of. And it's really the only place in the map, you know, where you can do it. The trouble is a lot of times those bale destroyer triggers are sitting in a barn, they're sitting kind of like this map here, they're sitting in town at a place, you know, near the auction yard where you can sell bales, and it just makes zero sense that you would take rocks there to dispose of. What would make a whole lot more sense is kind of what I'm going into here. This is kind of a cool little area Wes created. I don't know if he had something intended for it. You know, what you kind of have here is a pile of gravel, or that's kind of the appearance of it. And there's a flat area, and you have a conveyor belt, almost as if he maybe was thinking at some point to build in some rock crushing equipment. He kind of flattened an area up here, and all I did, I just did this just a little bit ago, we'll see here in a moment if it works. I took the bale destroyer triggers, you know, which were clear up here by the livestock market, and I duplicated them, and I pasted 4 of them kind of in this flat area, basically under the assumption that rocks could be dumped here and they would be turned into gravel. Now, it would be an awesome thing, you know, if someone was going to mod this, you know, into something further or add additional functionality. This would be a great area to do it, where you could remove the pile and turn it into a dynamic pile, put a piece of equipment here, and make it so that when you dropped off rocks, it would turn it into gravel or sand or something. And then, of course, you'd need somewhere else in the map to haul the gravel. You know, maybe a construction site. Shoot, wasn't there there was a construction site over here by the pork farm, right? Yeah, where we put in our orchard. There was a home kind of under construction, so it'd be a perfect place to haul some gravel. So I don't know that that's something I will develop, but it is an idea. I sort of did it, I think, in another map where it had more of a quarry kind of in the middle. That'd be the Glen Ellie map. Haven't really done much on that series. I'd like to get to it at some point. But this would be a great area to build something like that in here. And, you know, probably wouldn't be hard to just add some machinery. But for the moment, we can't see it because they're invisible, but there's 4 triggers, and I think all I need to do is literally drive up in there, and we'll just see if it works. I'm kind of testing it now, and see if it takes the rocks out of my trailer. And it did! Woohoo! Let me make sure. Okay, no errors. So, I don't know about you, but to me, visually, it makes a whole lot more sense to bring the rocks into a place that kind of looks rocky, versus taking them up to the bale cell point. Alright, let me head home with this trailer, and gonna have to do a little bit of driving here to get it back to the main farm. So, tell you what, I'll be back here in a moment. Alright folks, we are back at the store with one purpose in mind. We're going to rent the roller. I can't remember. Oh, it's probably over here in the cultivators. There it is. Aha. Rent. Don't know how long I'll need it. Maybe 2 hours I'll get it for 4 fields that we have. Yeah, we can probably do a fair amount of damage. But the thing I like about the roller is, of course, it smashes rocks. Designed it to do that. There we go. And we're going to take this right up to... Actually, you know what? It also digs rocks, so I need to make sure... Wait, Alt-R... that it is off. I should maybe see if there's a way to deactivate it. The reason it'll dig rocks is because it is a cultivator. It's going to leave the cultivator texture, even though it's technically a roller. Kind of counterintuitive, but that is a specialization that is in the mod. And since I designed it to take out rocks, not to bring more of them, it's good that we turn that part off. So on the farm, of course, when we were picking up rocks in the fields, of course, we never took them to a place where bales were. We always took them to what we would call the rock dump. And is this working for us now? Oh, it's probably going to swing like a pendulum going around the outer edge. Let's give this a try. Yeah, you can hear it's making... Ah! Dang it. Yeah, this is just one of those curious things. Oh, it's destroying that grass out there, too. We've probably all had that happen where the plow swings like a pendulum and it makes it impossible to cover certain areas. And there we go. We got that. Just one of those things we're going to have to deal with. Well, I'll do the best I can, and that'll just... We are zipping right along, folks. Oh, there we go. Okay, so shoot, I just missed it. We just ran over a rock and smashed it into the soil. But anyway, on the farm, you know, when we were out picking up a rock, we had a designated place to take them. And actually, more than one. You know, in the old days, when the fields were... Oh my goodness, it's having trouble pulling. In the old days, when the fields were first being formed, you know, they didn't have a lot of the heavy-duty equipment that they have now. And so, a lot of times, if a rock was big enough, they would just leave it, you know, where they found it. And just farm around it. And sometimes, you know, they would push them or try to push them as best they could, you know, maybe into a pile in the middle of the field. And so I remember on Lone Oak Farms, where I worked many years in my growing up years, there were more than one field that had a rock pile kind of somewhere in the middle of it where the old timers managed to move some of the rocks. And we farmed around these for years. And in later years, you know, I remember there was a concerted effort to take even more rock out of the fields if they could. You know, it's just, what you end up doing is damaging your machinery. And, you know, it's, mistakes can happen around rocks. You try to get rid of them as best you can. I'll take that baby out. Okay, I think I heard a clink. Wow, this just does not like the edge of the fields, does it? I'm taking out the grass around the edge, too. And for the fields that didn't have a rock pile in the middle, you know, sometimes they were able to take them off. Ideally, the old timers would try to haul them off the field too. And they would take them a lot of times to a gully or a kind of a low place that the farmer didn't mind, if it get filled, maybe it was an open place in a ravine where they could just pack it full of rock and nobody cared. So there was a number of places on the farm that we just called rock dumps, and literally truckload after truckload of field rocks were dumped into these gullies year over year. And it's just amazing. You can still go see them, and it's just, how did all these rocks just accumulate in this spot? And if anybody were ever to see it years later and have no context, it's farming activity that did it. This must be incredible. Oh my goodness, look how uneven that is. I wondered, Wes, Wes told me, or he, I can't remember if he put this in an email or if he left it in a YouTube comment on one of these, that he had some idea once upon a time, because there's a wood chip storage place kind of up the hill, and maybe it's up over here. He had considered turning this whole field 23 into a forest, where you can come up here and do logging. So if it's a forest, naturally you wouldn't be as interested in smoothing it all out, that kind of thing. So I may need to go into the editor and touch this up, so give it just a little smoothing, because otherwise this is going to be brutal. I don't know why it literally swings uphill, in certain instances, but yeah, some of this is just, it's a little too bumpy for what we're doing here. Of course, I could have, not farmed some of this area, but oh no, gotta farm fence post to fence post. Remember, I'm still horribly in debt, so I gotta get as big a field area as I could, or so went my reasoning. So anyway, that's kind of what we did on the farm, with rocks, and so I wanted to kind of duplicate it. I did it in another map too, and now I did it in this one here. Here's a rock. Let's crunch this bad boy. Oh, is that going? Oh yeah, it's going right over the top of it. You know what it is? The trigger that's on the bottom of these rollers is pretty small, so I bet it just spanned the. All right, we're gonna lift this thing. Come on, get up. There we go. I'm pretty sure I can take this guy out. Yeah, got him. Everybody heard the clink, right? I think the worst round is just going to be kind of on these outer edges, so where it's really bumpy next to the fence. And shoot, maybe it's Apple A in real life too. So, Gelvin Valley now has a dedicated rock dump. And if worse came to worse, if somebody wasn't using this particular mod, it would just be a place where bales could be destroyed. And that isn't that far afield either. Sometimes, depending on the value of straw, and I remember a day when straw wasn't really worth all that much, and depending on who you ask, it still isn't. But sometimes, if you had leftover straw that you hauled off the field for some reason, and you didn't need it, and you weren't going to sell it, well, you just kind of left it in a pile, and it would rot somewhere. Oh, took out another rock. And so, I guess it wouldn't be the same as leaving it there to rot, but it could serve as a place to dispose of his bales, if someone wasn't using the rock mod. And, I remember seeing, I think it was called a Riverside map. It was a third-party DLC for Farming Simulator 11. And in there, the modder had built a place where you could take bales. Matter of fact, I think in the base map for Riverside, it was the only place where you could dispose of bales. You couldn't even sell them. So I was really old school, maybe, but it would break down the bales and turn them into manure, which you could then use to fertilize the field. So that was kind of a clever thing to build into a map. Probably took a specialized script for that particular map, which of course wasn't public. So all sorts of things can be built into a map to suit your fancy, such as rock removal. Now my thing is probably going to behave like a pendulum again, which is kind of a bummer. But, yeah, see, it's kind of hanging down the side here. Here comes another rock. We'll take it out. Oh, come on. Yeah, see, maybe there's a few that are just too... There we go. I just had to work it the right way to get it to punch into the soil. Turn the corner here. This particular episode, I also wanted to, even as I just smash rocks, which is going to take a little while to get over these fields that we have worked up, I want to revisit a topic from a couple sessions ago, which was some of the advantages and disadvantages of playing an older version of Farm Sim. And one of the things that I recall saying was both an advantage and a disadvantage was mods. And with an older version, by the time it got through its life cycle, a lot of times what would happen, I mean, first off, there'd be a ton of mods made over the typically the 2-year period. And also, the maker of the game, the Giants, would also have patched the stuffing out of the game, tried to fix and drum out any errors that had been found. That would already be done. And modders would have found and helped to eliminate other annoying errors, if you will. And their mods would have been tested in the public many, many times. A lot of times for especially the excellent modders would have taken that opportunity to fine-tune their mods so that they would be in the best possible working order, before the new version would come along and everybody's attention, got turned to the newer version. Something I need to do with this mod? I need to make it eliminate tracks. Yes, I do. I think that's something I need to put into it. But I digress. Here comes another rock. We're going to bust it. Come on. Or are we? Huh. Must have made a clink and I didn't hear it. But one of the upsides of playing an older version of Farming Sim is all of these things that I just mentioned. Many, many mods, a stable game, well-tested mods, and they're just plentiful if you know where to look on the internet. The downside is that the more time that goes by, it's getting harder and harder to find these old mods. And it isn't so much that the sites on which these mods, were hosted are disappearing, although some of them have and are. But a lot of times the links that these mods were available from are dead and dying. And I think some of the ad harkens to an era, modders, the Giants now will pay money, a certain amount, based on the number of clicks for a premium modder that they host on their site. That's just kind of how it works. And I'm not here to debate whether that's a good or a bad thing. But maybe it has changed a little the need some modders have felt to put their mods on a dodgy site. In the old days, old meaning 10 years ago or whatever, in some of these older versions, there was no system that compensated modders for all their work. So a lot of times, the only way a modder could think of because you're not supposed to charge money for mods, you can't get people to pay for it. I mean, people have, and they generally get in trouble by the giants when they do that, maybe with a lawsuit or whatever. So what they would do is they would host the mod on some dodgy site, where you click on it and have to hold your breath and hope you don't catch a virus, with all the pop-ups and all that foofara, that happens on a dodgy site. But apparently, those pop-ups and advertising, whatever it would do, would generate a little bit of revenue that would accrue to the modder. And, or at least, so I infer from the number of guys, who did it. And there were many, many, of course, who did not, but many who did. Well, the problem is, it used to be said, beware putting something on the internet because it's going to be there forever. Well, maybe that's only true if, you do something embarrassing and you screw up, and maybe that stays forever on the internet. But if you put a big mod file somewhere on the internet, that may not be there forever. And what I'm starting to discover is in a lot of these older games, this here's Farming Simulator 15. I have a series also on Farm Sim 13 and Farm Sim 11. Well, shoot, I got also series technically going on 17 and 19 and 22. But primarily on 11 and 15. Those would be where most of my videos have been made. It's getting tougher to find mods for those. The sites are still out there, but if any of the links on those sites were to mods hosted on some of these, I keep calling them dodgy sites. I don't know what you'd call them. Maybe they're just file hosting means, the uploaded .to, I don't even know what any of them are called. Sites that for whatever reason allow you to put large files and then set up links to them. Well, a lot of those entities, sites, or whatever that allows you to do that, I don't know if there's companies behind them. They either eventually delete the mods, or maybe they go bankrupt and they cease to exist. And however it happens, a lot of those files are simply no longer available. And a part of me doesn't blame them at all. I mean, it's gotta cost some money to host those things, and if you're not receiving anything for hosting somebody's file, then why would you continue just to host it for free? Or maybe, if clicks fall below a certain level and you're no longer receiving any revenue from it, if you're the hoster, maybe you say, hey, it's time to clean house, we get rid of this thing, free up space for something that does make them money. I don't know how the calculus works, how they figure all that out. And maybe some of it is just inattention. The modder moves on, no longer logs in to check it out. And so maybe there's just a mechanism, hey, we'll hold this for a few years, and then after a certain amount of time's gone by, we're just going to clear the archives and be done with it. So, you can go onto some sites that still exist, such as ModHoster, that's a German site, and they may have a link to a particular mod on one of these sites, and if you click on it, it may no longer be downloadable because the file no longer exists. And much better luck is had with those mods that were, the case of ModHoster, they were hosted on ModHoster proper. And sometimes there will be two links. Modders have always been pretty particular as to where and who is hosting their mod. I think that's still probably true today. And I know we've talked before about some of the reasons why they feel that way. But sometimes back in the day, some were so fastidious about it that, again, talking mod hoster, they would tell mod hoster, hey, I don't even want you guys, you can link to it, but you gotta use my link, my original link. And so what they would do is mod hoster would say, well, here's the mod, and if you want it, you gotta go click on dodgysite.com in order to download it. Well, all well and good, not much good, as long as the link, is still active, as long as you can still get the mod. But then what do you do once the link is broken, which many of them are now, and the mod no longer becomes available? It makes even sites like ModHoster of less value because, they will still show a mod in their system, but you just don't get to have it because it's no longer available. Far better is if the modder would swallow a little pride and allow ModHoster to host their mod in addition to the original link. At least then, once the modder got to the point that they no longer cared about their mod, well, at least then, a place like ModHoster still had it in their inventory and the public could continue to download it. But anyway, just kind of one of the problems run into when it comes to older mods. So something I wanted to kind of visit about is when it comes to mods for these older games, where can you find them? And so I think as the bell just rang, I'll reserve that for the next episode there. We go got rid of another rock. And maybe the next time we come in here, I can share a little bit more on that and share some links, of places I'm aware of, that still have them, for any who might be interested in playing some of these old games. But for now, thank you so much for giving this a listen. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.